what did you come in? And he said, Spitfire. And he said, Triumph. And he went, no, Supermarine. It was delivered to tell you to get out the fucking way, which ultimately is what a splitter is doing on the road. It's not aerodynamic. The splitter is saying, get out of the way.
It's shit. You've rebuilt it like Trigger's broom about 3 times. You lift up the carbon fibre or so-called carbon fibre door and there is wood underneath.
Hello and welcome to episode 7 of the Car Podcast with Chris Harris and his little friendies. It's 7 o'clock on a Monday evening. My cohorts are quite jolly. They're consuming alcohol, apart from Neil Clifford, who's just got a wacky hat on for a change. And Chris Cooper is drinking Red Bull, which often means he gets a little bit chirpy in the second half when he gets second wind. The agenda today begins with me delivering a slight monologue, an awkward, slightly apologetic monologue. Then I'm going to open the floor to my friends to see whether they agree with me, or I'm going to offer them the opportunity to anticipate how they might make the same mistake. The mistake I made is that I'm afraid I told you all a lie. In a podcast last year, in a previous life, I told you that I'd never buy another diesel vehicle. And 2 weeks ago, I bought another diesel vehicle. The vehicle in question is an Alpina D3. It has around 340 horsepower and so much torque that it could probably spit its axle out at any speed. I am now completely in love with this vehicle. I've done 1,800 miles in it in 2 weeks. At a decent lick, it averages about 42 miles an hour. It's pretty much silent. It rattles a little bit at idle, so it doesn't sound like a sports car. But it reminded me that a really, really good diesel works very, very well as everyday transport. They are frugal, they're incredibly torquey. As long as you're not attacking B-roads, auto car styly with helmsmanshippery, then actually a diesel is a great option. And I just don't understand the way this country's been led. And I was led. I decided that diesel was dead forever. This thing is Euro 6 compliant. I can drive it into any you are a les situation. And I think it's a great car. A high-performance diesel in this country works for many people, but we're told they're the pariah, that they're evil. Are they evil? I don't know. I'm getting 40-something to the gallon. I see no smoke out the back of it. I'm using less fuel. I'm recycling an old car that 2 other people have owned before me. I think I'm doing the right thing here, and I don't think a petrol one would be quite as appealing. This car has 8 gears and needs about 2. It's got so much torque. So, my question to my fellow podcasters is, I said that I'd never do this. What absolute have you set yourself, probably in the car world, I hope, that you said you would never do again, that you suspect you might? And I'm going to put that to Chris Cooper.
Well, I agree with you about the diesel. You're doing God's work. It's a really, really good piece of kit. You and I went to see it together. And we kind of both seen it at the same time. And we sort of made a deal that you'll get it and then we'll share it around in sort of a non-humiliating way.
Which is a further example of reuse.
It is. Didn't Bob the Builder talk about that stuff? Reuse, renew, recycle. We're doing Bob's work.
Yeah.
And we've all said never agains that we're going to break. That's what makes it. We're obsessives. We're lunatics. We're mentalists. So I definitely said, after I'd had my M6 E62-3, whatever it is, after an M5, I thought the M6 would just be like an M5 but better, and it wasn't. It was just a bit floppy and horrible, and the brakes were even worse. And I said, never, ever again will I ever buy one of those SMG-type gearboxes and cars. Yeah. Never again. Because in years to come, we'll realise how much we were hoodwinked by manufacturers into thinking that they were like Formula One cars and racing cars and da-da-da-da-da. And then DCT double-clutch gearboxes came along. We thought, oh, yeah, they're a bit better, aren't they? You say that. I really love the idea of one now. I really do. It's your M5. It's your fault, Mr. H. Your M5 and that everything M-Power little Instagram site. You go on there and you think, I'd have all of those. I really would have all of those. And I found myself looking at a Ferrari 612. Well, Ferrari 612s, generally. Yeah. And there are very few of them with manual gearboxes. And I've actually thought, you know what? I said I would never do this. I quite like the idea of one of the SMG F1A, one of those. I just think they're... So I think we're hopeless. We will always say, I'm never going to do that, never going to do that. But because we're obsessives and addicts, we're going to do it. So for me, it would be... I have been looking at M5s, E60 M5s. I have been looking at...
I'll tell you what, a good single clutch gearbox, there's a charm to it. And there's two very simple reasons for this. One, you can make a difference as the driver.
Massive.
All right? And I think we all love the fact that this is not just for rock apes. You know, a DCT, DST will do it for you.
Yeah.
But if you drive it, you can chamfer, you can make little inputs, and you can make it work.
You can. I remember first driving an M3, E46 M3, when that first came out with the SMG. It would have been Profits of Gerrard's Cross or Sittner at Gerrard's Cross. Mark Malloy, if you're listening to this, I'm really sorry that I put your head through the windscreen. And I just tried, he said, just go in. And you just tried, you had your foot on the power and you went for the gear change.
Yeah.
I'm amazed my head's still connected to the rest of my body. It was just, well, that's shit. Then you're absolutely right. You realise actually there's a technique to it. How you lift and just balance and, you know, that cadence. And
the other thing is that I've tried the manual conversions on these cars. Those engines were created, calibrated to run with those gearboxes. And if you start messing about and changing the gear ratios and everything, they don't really work. That BMW V10, the S85, yeah, those manual conversions are great. Darragh does a great job. They're the best out there. But I tell you what, if you get in my 7-speed SMG afterwards, the car is like 15% faster.
Yeah.
I've got a little lever. I pull back and I can pretend that I'm a DTM driver. And frankly, the whole thing is just cool. It's of its time.
I know. And the downshifts are mega. And I think the last thing I'll say on that, in terms of, because I think my answer is, what never agains do you suspect you'll break? Well, all of them. There's something about mechanical sympathy, which we should come back to.
Yep.
But I'll break all of them.
And thank God you didn't say DB9 Volante, because I was scared for a minute.
Not that.
Right. Neil with an E, as you are, for those watching on YouTube. What's your never again? I mean, yours are spectacular, because I've seen your spreadsheet list of cars, and you go back to the same place many more times than we do.
Well, I never say never again.
Don't you?
No, because it would obviously be utter bullshit, and you can spot a liar, particularly when he's in the mirror, can't you?
But it's honest, isn't it? We felt it was honest at the time. But you're right.
I never say it, and
you're right.
You can spot. That's a T-shirt for Christmas. You can spot a liar, especially when he's in the mirror.
I just made that up. I think it's. I never say never again. You know, imagine this phone call, right? I own, and I'll try not to sort of drop people in the shit here. I own a car that is one of 13. Never been. You know, there's only 13 of these cars made. Incredibly difficult to value. Could be anywhere between 120 grand and 250 grand. You're very proud of it. It's shit. You've rebuilt it like Trigger's broom about 3 times. You lift up the carbon fibre or so-called carbon fibre door, and there is wood underneath. You're absolutely shit scared of driving it. The wheels at the front are as wide as the wheels at the back. It fucking overheats so badly that the gear stick, you can burn your hand on it if you do more than 50 miles. And you put this car into service, and you keep getting annoyed because they haven't rung you back and told you when the car is ready. And then in the end, you keep ringing and say, please, can you tell me my car is ready? And then you get the phone call and their number comes up on your phone. You're like, oh, thank God, the car is ready. And you pick up the phone and I said, thank you very much for calling. Is the car ready? I'm afraid not, sir. We've got some unfortunate news. And you say, well, it can't be that bad, you know. Is it $5,000 instead of $2,000? Oh, no. Unfortunately, the car is upside down. What do you mean it's fucking upside down? Well, it's upside down with the driver in it. Oh my God, that sounds...
It's just me with some people, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, so serious. Do you think the car will be okay? Well, we don't quite know yet because the police are there. And you're like, what do you mean the fucking police? I'm like, well, of course, the police are parked behind the ambulance. And so this is a card. I won't go any further than that. I am still looking for Bristols on carandclassic.co.uk. And, you know, I've had almost every one of the bloody things. I'm more of a V8 man than the purest six-cylinder. I'm a V8 guy. And I keep looking at what probably is the most ugliest car ever invented, the 412 Zagato. But actually, as Manish said last week, there are only two things, and clearly Bristol falls down at 50% of this. You've got to look fucking cool and you don't want to break down. And to me, a man of the 80s, a man of Car Magazine, a man of LJK Set Right, that set out to me that the Bristol was cooler than Rolls-Royce and Bentley, I will always love that car. It's a bit like the song "The Man with the Iron Mask." You know, if anyone wants to listen to that, you can't sometimes choose your love.
Yeah,
it's stuck with you. It's like a football team, and mine is Bristol. So I will have another one, even though they are shit.
I mean, there's another way for referring that. It could be a virus or a viral infection. We won't go into that manage because obviously he's got DR in front of his name, but a heartwarming tale of the Bristol fighter as he drinks from his Ferrari mug. Manish, what will you never do again?
Now, for a guy who's owned 2 cars in his life, okay, or probably 1.1, because I've only driven the second one 4 times between engineering and upholstery, this was a conundrum. This really was. I was like, how do I...
Feel free to move outside the world of cars. Just if we're going to talk about physical acts, just make sure that you know it's a family show.
But, well, I mean, you said, what never again do you suspect your brain?
Retrim a car?
You bastard. Low blow. What I was going to say was, when I was a teenager, a few friends did have Italian cars in the kind of mid-'80s. They had the Lancias, they had Alphas, one had a Fiat X19, and they were collectively rust buckets. I mean, somebody today reminded me that when he used to close his Alfa Sud door, it sounded like a packet of cornflakes. I mean, it was just such a bad, crunchy noise. And I think probably the lesson you learned from that as a late teenager is don't buy an Italian car. And I've just bought a 24-year-old Italian car. And I guess I'm going to do it again. You know, I've now become obsessed. Okay, but the only thing is I'm going to have to take...
No, we hadn't noticed, Manish. You don't do that obsession thing at all.
No. I'm going to take this obsession. I am now obsessed with owning a black Maserati Ghibli. I want one from 1969 or 1970. I think it's the forerunner to the 456, and I want one. And I want a black one, and I want it to have the same color interior. Because I'm just staring at photos of this car now.
They are.
So I've just said, look, I'll never buy another Italian exotic again, but I have a bad feeling about this. And it's a good feeling too.
I was in the presence of a Ghibli this morning. They really are beautiful. In fact, I was with someone who knows a bit about cars, and he walked around it and he went, why would you have a Daytona? And I have to say, for the money, there's a lot to be said for a Ghibli, isn't there? Yeah. They are absolutely beautiful.
But I was just terrified by the coupes. I mean, some of those are £700,000. I mean, if you've not the coupe, sorry, the convertible.
Oh yeah, but that we're talking about the coupes.
I know. It's that square window at the back. I mean, literally the length of the bonnet, the interior. Oh, what a car!
Yes.
I received a message on Instagram today, actually, from someone saying, I think this is the 456 that you drove to the wedding in the south of France when you were at Autocar magazine, because I basically blagged the Ferrari press car, and someone sent me a photo of it. It still exists. So if you own that car, I'd love to come and drive it again, because I have such fond memories of driving it south of France.
What colour was it?
It was TDF with a black interior.
Wow.
So it's a really cool, and we did lots of. I mean, we in those days, a Ferrari loan stipulated 500 miles maximum. That got us to Lyon on the way down, and didn't take into account what we'd do down there and driving it back. And I gave it back to the PR person and went, "I'm sorry," and they said, "That doesn't really cover it. You've done 1,900 miles. What did you think you were doing?" And I said, "I
knew exactly what I was doing.
I forgot," and I gave the keys back and ran away. But so no, they are wonderful cars. Okay, Manish. So you're not going to go Italian again.
Never.
So we've covered off a little bit of sort of cleansing there, bit of catharsis. I hope we feel more cleansed for this next question, which is, frankly, and I don't like to swear, fucking important. Okay, here we go. What is the best front spoiler or splitter fitted to a car? I'm going to go first to Chris Cooper.
I don't know why, but in my head, I've just got this equation between great front spoilers and splitters and mullets. I know it's the wrong end.
Shouldn't it be a beard?
Bear with me. Because I think great front end mullets on cars is a German thing, isn't it? There's a German thing going on. That's what I think it is. So I've got two.
Yeah. Oh,
how mullety is that as a German thing?
Yeah.
Group 5 Zack-Speed Capri, late 70s. Just
what a thing.
And slightly earlier mullet, but we've seen, and this is a famous photograph. Everyone's seen it.
Yeah, that's the one.
Ooh.
Oh.
Yeah.
And H.J. Stuck jumping at Fansgarten 2.
Fansgarten 2, exactly. Yeah.
Oh.
Both of those say to me, I don't know why, there's something about, I love the fact that they're German, and somewhere around the lives of those cars would be a hairstyle which has made a bit of a comeback in the youth of today in this country.
That's true.
Also, you just know that it was going to, in German, it would be called the Fleckhügelgeschwindigkeit
Steiner Wuchsgrundstufe. Yeah, you will. So I think, I mean, I'll have a different one every day, because at some point I'll get over I do like a bit of German. I don't like a bit of German mullet, but I like the idea of that one in particular, the Zack-Speed Group 5 Capri, late 70s. That just says there's everything. I mean, Zack-Speed are based at the Ring, where the CSL photograph were taken. I just think there's something lovely mullety in German about those. And I think you're so close to getting it right, but you've just missed out just a little bit. Don't get 3 ticks this week.
No, you don't quite. So, and I'll tell you why. I've got to find the right photograph here. Here we go. Here's the photograph. So, you've got one of those is the correct brand. But for me, the original is the best. And I think for me, splitter means it's got to be sort of vertiginous. It's got to look like there's a load more real estate underneath the sort of rubbing bumpy bit than you expect.
Yeah, by that.
You saw them and you went, oh my God, that must mean competition.
You're going to get some kind of steam train, are you? You're going to get
Manish, there's no need for that at all.
Sorry.
Okay?
I know
that you've been drinking, but you must remain controlled. Okay? There we go. He's back in his box. So here we go. I'm going to show you a Flügel Heckflügel that's actually has been used to deliver a worded message. Who knows what I'm talking about?
No.
It is, of course, the 2002 Turbo. The Turbo was written the wrong way around, so it's red Turbo in your rearview mirror.
Yeah.
That in itself makes it, for me, the coolest splitter. It was delivered to tell you to get out the fucking way, which ultimately is what a splitter is doing on the road. It's not aerodynamic. The splitter is saying, get out of the way in your rearview mirror. And I think the only other car that comes close is I'm the custodian of a 2014 Camaro Z28, which has a splitter that is so ridiculous on it, it comes out a foot in front of the car. It's the biggest splitter ever fitted to a road car.
Yeah.
But even that doesn't say, Das Turbo, get out of Das way. And therefore, for me, it's the 2002 Turbo. Manish, over to you.
I'm going to be very, very contrarian about this. As you know, I have a passion for wedge cars.
Yes.
And I think the whole point about a wedge car is they've got a nice pointy front. And anyone who puts a splitter on those, like an LP400S or a 500 or a Quattrovalvole, should face the death penalty immediately. And I was just having a look.
Fair.
Is there a but here? Is there a but?
No, there really is. Well, there's a micro but, okay? Here's the micro but. So I had a look at all of my favorite cars, and I have to say, there's just a micro but. The Lamborghini Jota, if you look at the splitter, it does something very elegant. From the front wheel arch, it comes down. There's a line that comes down at 45 degrees. It then just goes around the front of the car, comes back up the other side at 45 degrees, and it's painted a kind of perfect matte black on all 8 Jotas that have that. And I have to say, if I was going to have a splitter on my beautiful car, that would be the one I'd have. It's so elegant.
Okay, I can agree with that. The bar's been set very high. We'll show a picture of that for you now, those of you who watch it. Those of you that listen to it, you've no idea what we're talking about. You better get Googling afterwards.
Yeah.
Okay. R.I.P. Ratan Tata.
Neil. Doesn't Neil get to do a split?
Oh,
Neil with a
shit.
knee.
Sorry, Neil, carry on.
Can I just, will these little name labels here come up on our little, because I'm dyslexic, all I can see on Neil's screen is methane.
Yeah, it does.
It's like methane.
Sorry, I do apologise, Neil. I got a bit carried on with Manish's Jota. Neil, what were you going to have for your front splitter and spoiler?
I honestly think yours is the best, actually, with the turbo and reverse. To be honest, I've never had that car. Our friend Jay has got one, and every time I see it, I'm like, oh my god, that's so cool.
There's that.
They're quite good to drive. If they're healthy, they still feel quite quick as well.
Yeah, lovely thing. I mean, it's not really a front splitter, really. I adore, mainly because I own one, and I look at it and think, how the fuck was this car ever made? The front spoiler of the Project 8 Jaguar.
Yeah.
It's so ridiculously designed, and they must have lost literally £100,000 on every single one of those cars. You know, let's work out reasons why this car won't sell. Let's do it in left-hand drive only. Let's make it in full. I mean, that thing is incredible. But the front spoiler, the whole of the front of the car, to be honest, the more you look at it, because it's got a huge splitter carbon thing coming out, which makes you so nervous parking the bloody thing. And this splitter, actually, it's like a hovercraft. The fucking thing goes all the way around the car.
Yeah.
It's like a skirt.
Because yours got the no step signs all over it.
Yeah, no step. I think to me, as a normal road car, as opposed to race car ideas, I think that's up there. Actually, it's such a ridiculously outrageous, stupid car.
But also curiously usable and got lots of real Jaguar qualities to it. I bet you, I remember I said to you, when you're done with that, I'll have that off you. You will not sell that car, will you?
It's the fastest ever Jaguar, I think. Certainly road car.
Yeah,
and
must be.
It's a 4-door 911 997 4-litre. Feels special.
It does feel special.
It feels special. I've got the touring one, so you haven't got all the knobby.
I think that's even more special.
Why the guy sold it? He had a matching D-type. I mean, why would you sell that car? But I'm very thankful that he sold me that car. And it's, it's bloody brilliant. And it has a very cool front spoiler.
There you go. And I got this, I'm afraid I've given this away. Our next piece is about Ratan Tata, who died the other day. I mean, those of you that don't follow the industry too closely, this is a big, big name. A man who ran an Indian conglomerate that effectively reminded the world of the power of the Indian economy and turned the tables on the colonial relationship. You know, he bought Jaguar and Land Rover in 2008. Something he probably regretted doing just before he passed away, because it hasn't really worked out latterly so well. But This is a man who I think in '99 went to America to speak to Ford, and they just said, "Do you know what you're doing, mate? I'm not really sure that you've got an idea how this car business works." Well, less than a decade later, he bought what were some of the crown jewels of the Ford empire, and did for quite a long time a very good job with them.
Yeah.
So here's I thought I'd just summarise it in a simple, slightly crude way, because I think a potted history of Ratan Tata will not be of interest to everyone, although he's well worth going and Googling. Just a story of someone who had vision and did execute on many levels. Will he be seen as the saviour of Land Rover or the person who killed Jaguar? And now, given that Neil just finished talking about his beloved Project 8, I'd like to hear from him first.
Tata. We were talking about. I think he will be seen as saving Land Rover, probably, because fundamentally we're optimists, aren't we? And so I think he probably is seen as that. I was thinking about the job that he's got, and I don't really know much about that organisation. Surely I should know more. I know we talk about Jerry often, and I've got personal experience of this, of failing when trying to do this. Don't try to do two really important things at the same time, because you'll fuck one of them up. And certainly I've got that personal experience. You have to have either bin the one that you think is probably not as good as the good one, and just focus all your efforts on the good one, or create a totally different structure where the leadership, motivation, focus, ambition, incentive schemes is driven by two separate teams. Because if you try to get two amazingly difficult things done with one team, it's really bloody difficult. And I can't, I'm sure there are examples of geniuses. I don't know, let's say Elon Musk, there are maybe a few people, but maybe he runs those organizations completely separate. I mean, SpaceX isn't the same company as Tesla, is it? It's got two leadership teams, two incentive schemes, two
one's a public company and one's not. Yeah,
independent. So I think the question wasn't what did he do wrong, but I've answered it anyway, that he probably should have split them in two, and then he would have had more chance.
I think that's a very interesting and I suspect correct answer. I wrote the one thing about being a columnist, a weekly columnist on any magazine that's within a vertical that you're passionate about, in my case, cars, back in the day, is that if you're like me, you never reread your columns. I didn't even read them when they were published. But I had a weekly column for Car for many, many years, probably 7 years, I think. And I wrote about this a lot because it was pertinent to the motor industry. And I stopped writing a weekly column just before I think Tata bought Jaguar and Land Rover. No, I didn't. Because the deal had been announced, and I remember writing this column. And with my crystal ball out, I called it absolutely right. I summarised it this way: that he'd bought a Jewel and he'd bought an Albatross. The Jewel was Jaguar that was going to flourish under the new regulations, because SUVs were going to be damned to the bin because they were going to be found out to be too heavy and wasteful, and that Land Rover would be finished. and I proclaimed this from my high altar of utter bullshit and knowing nothing. And I remember people writing in going, "You're so right." And
You're amazing.
I'd love to find that column. It was among my worst, but I was so wrong because the moment that business started to evolve, it was so clear that there was an easy win, and that was flogging Range Rovers for vast profits and margins, or trying to take on the Germans at their own game, trying to sell C-Class and 3 Series, which and A4s. The Germans had it sewn up by then. Chris Cooper, what do you think?
So your question was, will he be seen as the saviour of Land Rover and the killer of Jaguar? And I don't think he will be seen as the killer of Jaguar. And I think he should already be seen as the saviour of Jaguar. Yeah. Because if he hadn't bought it with Land Rover in 2008, it could easily have already gone.
Yeah.
And in fact, although you could argue it's it's too soon to say. There's that really amazing story, isn't there, about where that expression got sort of traction. Back in the early 70s, when Richard Nixon and Kissinger were the leaders of the US, they had the first presidential visit to China, 1972. And they had to try and sort of build and develop a relationship and think about the status of China in the world and blah, blah, blah. Kissinger asked the then premier of China, thinking about position in history and geopolitical, what do you think of the French Revolution? And the Chinese premier at the time said, it's probably too early to say. And the Americans went home thinking, Jesus Christ, that was 17th century or whatever it was. We've got to completely change the way we think about the world. And a few years later, the interpreter said, no, he meant the 1968 Paris riots. He was only talking about 3 years ago. So with that little sort of caution in our mind about is it too early to say, I do think it's already okay to say that Tata, Rajan Tata, was the saviour of Jaguar because Ford sold them. Ford had already decided this was not for them in 2008. BMW had already decided amazingly they didn't want the Range Rover brand. I mean, given what they've done with Mini and Rolls-Royce, you just said it's not. And I think he was actually amazingly patient. I mean, he's a real Manish. You may have sort of got thoughts on this interesting as well, with your perspective of the Indian economy and culture and society. He bought the Port Talbot, or Port Talbot, as it would be said, British Steel, Port Talbot as the locals would call it, Tetley. He was a real Anglophile.
He was.
There was a lot of fuss last year when the steelworks in South Wales was shut. But he bought them 17 years previously, put $5 billion into it. Always going to be difficult to make that kind of business work in the UK. He was incredibly patient and far-sighted. And I think there's a parable in here about the current mood music and appetite in the UK for either domestic or international investment in major industries, and the mood music of, is it a good thing to do? And I think Rajan Tata is a very positive lesson for lots of people to say, do you know what? He was passionate and he was patient. And got Jaguar and Land Rover to a point now where they have a future. Jaguar definitely has a future. They're wrestling with how far and how fast to go for EV, like every manufacturer is. We're going to talk about VW at some point in the next few weeks. And that may make the problems of Jaguar look insignificant. So,
but before I ask Manish the same question, can I just read a quotation from the Guardian's obituary, which I think is probably the harshest utterance I ever saw him. Did you read this as well? This is in 2011. He told the Times, talking about the UK,
I've seen this.
Industrial scene. Nobody seems to want to exert the effort to make the UK truly competitive. It's a work ethic issue. In my experience in both Chorus, the steel business, and JLR, Jaguar Land Rover, nobody is willing to go the extra mile. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
I think actually that's the harshest thing I read. Before we ask Manish this, who I think will have obviously a very interesting point of view, the one thing I think it was really compelling about him was that we're talking about reverse colonialism here. We're talking about a man who effectively was an industrial leader of a country that was colonized by the United Kingdom. And he turned the tables, but he never did it. I never felt he did it with a sense of glee or retribution or malice.
Quite the opposite.
Most people in his position would love the idea of giving it that one, the big FU. And I never got the feeling that he did that, which there must have been some temptation to do that. And I don't think he ever did.
I don't
Manish,
think he
what
did.
do you think?
I read actually a really excellent obituary in the Times. It wasn't really meant to be an obituary; it was sort of an economic write-up. It was Oliver Shah. I don't know if you saw that over the weekend, and I thought it was just really brilliantly written, because what I think Shah got at was that you effectively had with this man. Did you just say something in the background? Sort of the two big industrial families in India are the Tatas and the Birlas. They're the two big families, and they are exactly, as Mr. Cooper said, they're all about the marathon. They were never about the sprint. And that was always the Tata way. When I was a kid, when I used to go and visit India, I mean, every truck was a Tata truck, all of them. With that fantastic T, the A with the crossbar missing, another T and another A with the crossbar missing, and invariably driven by a massive Sikh who lives on chickpeas. And, it was just that was India. That is what got goods from, Kashmir to Madras. And they knew a thing or two about cars. My understanding is that when they did go to Dearborn and go and meet Bill Ford, and he really humiliated them, it was a 2-hour meeting, and they were really just told, what the hell do you know about cars? And apparently they flew to New York, and they were all just looking at the soles of their feet on the journey over, thinking, well, how do we come back from this? And by then, actually, they'd started making cars in India. The
Nano.
The Indy car.
Yeah, there was one before. There was one in the late 90s they made. The Nano was a bit later.
No, the Nano was much later. I'd written it down, actually. The first one was the Sierra. Unfortunate name, 1991. The Indica came in 1998. And, most people, I think, at that point would have either packed up or done the kind of Ferruccio Lamborghini spite thing. I'm going to do this, motivated by spite. But I don't think that was never his way. And I think, as you said, there was a genuine love for Britain. And I think if he's going to make a point about the lack of the work ethic in this country, and look, rightly or wrongly, there are 5 million people in this country right now who are not working because of illness of some description or another. So I don't know what that is as a percentage of our workforce, but I think that might have made Mr. Tata's eyebrows climb somewhat. And all I'd say is that he loved cars. I mean, my understanding is that whenever he went to the factory, he spent loads of time with the test driver because he just went, I just love cars. And it was in his blood. And in the end, I mean, I don't know if you read today, Tavares was saying, oh, well, one of the big problems Stellantis has and all car makers have is, are we meant to be making electric cars or are we meant to be making, petrol engine cars? I mean, what are we supposed to actually be doing? And while we have this kind of global schizophrenia, this is not good for the car business. And I think ultimately Jaguar at least have decided, okay, in Ratan's time, we're going EV. That is the way we're going to go. And he's put his money on a horse and said, sorry, 2025, you get the models you get. When our EV is ready, you will get the EV. They've made a decision. And I think, you're just completely right about the Land Rover part of it. It's such a beautifully segmented thing, isn't it? Land Rover, Defender, Range Rover. Then you just make your subclasses within those, and that's just free money. I mean, here's a little startling fact. Bernie Ecclestone has 2 Range Rover Evoques, not one. Fabi drives one, Bernie drives the other. And that should tell you something about that car. He can drive anything he wants, but, the Evoque, it's big enough, but it's also small enough. And so all I'd say is, in the end, I think Chris is right. The company was saved by him, both parts of it. And I don't think they feel the need to segment or split off both of these. They already did that. They put commercial vehicles on one side, passenger vehicles on the other side. And I think there's a lot of passion and there's a lot of pride, actually, in making something like a Jaguar work. And I can tell you, nobody at Tata would be happy if Jaguar went the way of Bristol or the way of Triumph or any of the other great British marques. They'd be really, really unhappy.
Yeah.
Let's keep Neil Clifford well away from their service departments then. We don't need another shit show from you, Neil Clifford.
Well, exactly.
The Jaguar's gone though, isn't it?
Gone for now.
I thought next year we'll have our new Jag, won't we?
We'll see the prototype this year. We'll see the car at 25.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Let's remain. Neil Clifford, you're a weirdo. You're an optimist. Come on. I'm the pessimist here. You lot are all optimists.
Okay. Well, on the next question, can I answer it first, please?
No, he said you can answer it second.
You know what? You're a shitbag, but you can do it because we love you. So the question is this, because Neil and I are going to have the same fucking answer.
We're not.
What British car brand would you resurrect? What would the first product be, and why would it work? Okay. Neil Clifford.
I'm going to resurrect fucking Jaguar. There you go. That's a good link, isn't it? So I knew I wasn't the one, because I know what ones Chris has chosen.
Yes,
and it's not going to be that.
That's very kind. Thank you.
And no, I've gone and done a deal with old Mr. Tata. I've told him, I whispered in his ear, don't do this big, long, ugly, fucking electric thing for the Chinese. We're gonna do something great. And he's gone, okay, go for it. Here's £1 billion. We're gonna roll the dice one more time on Jaguar. And what's the obvious thing to do if you're going to do a Jaguar? You do the E-Type. Right? So you're relaunching the E-Type because, of course, you've gone back through the history books and figured out that maybe Porsche weren't stupid. You've got a fucking great car and you don't stop building it. You just build the car, the same bloody car, for 50 years. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to the E-Type. We're going to relaunch the E-Type. And here's the list of what we're going to do, because I've written it all down. I've got the whole strategy, actually. Right, we're going to get the S1. So you're not going to do S2, S3, 2+2, convertible. We're going to do the proper one. We're actually going to go and have a JV with Nissan, because what's the best straight six engine? It's the Nissan out the R35. So we're going to get all of the running gear, because the new CEO, son, or what they call is San, I think, in Japan, is obsessed with E-Types. And we've got really lucky because he's actually, I'll lend you all the running gear at cost from the R35 if you want to do an E-Type, because I'd love one of those. And we're going to, the key to this is, A, it's the prettiest car, apart from the Ferrari 275, but we're going to do 1,000 colours, because what are automotive companies really shit at is colour. They're fucking crap at colours. There's 17 greys and a red and a white, isn't there?
And the red's extra.
Yeah, you go on the Land Rover bloody configurator. There's some bloke who loves grey, and there's 19 of them. There's not a lovely non-metallic navy blue. There's not 3 or 4 different blues, actually.
Or green.
Yeah, or, Land Rover gave up green for about 5 years.
Yeah.
But the colours are not just going to be normal colours. We're going to go round all of the best motorsport events, and we're going to choose the colours from all those lovely 50s and 60s cars. So you can have Tyrrell blue, if you want, on an E-Type. You're going to have 100 different colours of leathers. There's a road version and a race version. There's 1961 we're going to do on the road car, because that was when it was created. And then we're going to do, how many we're going to do? We're not sure how many 12 or 18 there were of the lightweights, but anyway, we're going to do a few more of those.
I think there's about 150 now.
Yeah, exactly. We need to make some money, and basically we're going to put expensive dampers on them. We're going to retail them for about 175 grand or 225 grand for the race one with a titanium bloody roll cage. It's going to have CarPlay. It's going to be beautifully handmade, any colour you want. We're going to undercut Aston, undercut Bentley. And it's going to be the British Ferrari or Porsche, and it's going to be the prettiest car in the world, 170 mile an hour, 4.5 seconds 0 to 60 on auto car, and this car is going to be hugely successful.
What a time to lose
That is what I'm going to do, Chris.
Why have I lost my internet?
Would you, you're back. Would you, Neil, buy Eagle?
I lost
I would if it wasn't 700 grand, of course.
No, not the car. We're just spitballing here. Would you go, because it's a really interesting strategy, would you go and buy Eagle, E-Type?
The company or the car?
The company.
Me personally, no.
No, in this scenario, in this plan.
If I was using Tata money, because he wants to, everyone's fucked up the Jaguar strategy. He's given it to me. So, I'm gonna, probably I would.
I think you would. Just to sort of
this car needs
confusion.
And 200 grand, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you're actually going to make it work, it needs to be under 200 grand. And it's clearly bloody difficult. Clearly, this is all a bit of a joke.
But maybe there's a will, there's a way, and I like it. I've never seen such a global strategy from Neil Clifford. I've never seen it. He's given us the whole idea there. Chris Cooper, beat that.
Well, TVR.
Oh yes,
Oh yes.
There's a man who likes a project.
I think that's different. I don't think it's better. I think it's different. It's actually quite hard to do this, not TVR, but generally. And, Chris, you know this, I used to be quite close to Caterham Cars when the Nern family owned it. And I remember back in year 2000, with Simon Nern, who was then running the business, he and I, we looked at this question to say, how do you reinvent it? How do you save it? Because you're selling 500 cars a year. You sell them all in the summer. You pray like mad in the winter that everyone comes back again in the summer to buy your cars, and that's basically rinse and repeat. It's not really a strategy, it's just survival. What is the strategy for the future of this business after you and I have gone? And the current ownership of Caterham, Caterham is now owned by its Japanese importer. They've got a very sensible guy, Bob Lashley, who's a very senior, very sensible, pragmatic former Nissan guy in charge of all the Nissan Motorsport stuff, one of the fathers of the GTR program, blah, blah, blah. He's now looking at that same question. They've got a bigger factory in Dartford, 50% more capacity. Big problem is where to get the engines from, because who makes small engines for these cars? Can you get them in the right numbers? Will they want to create them? All those kind of things. So it's a genuinely hard thing to do. TVR was interesting to me because they sort of have tried to start it. One of my colleagues, Amelia, her brother, Jim Berryman, is the CEO of what purports still to be TVR. Les Edgar was the guy. Did you ever meet them, Chris, when they started out a few years ago? Because Haynes, our mutual friend Peter Haynes, did some of the PR for them when they launched the renewed Griffith, back at Goodwood in 15 or 16, whenever it was.
The red one.
The red one.
I remember there was a red one, and lots of influencers said they were going to buy them, and then it just took this.
Yeah, so it just shows how hard it is, because they had that long saga about won't there be a factory in Wales if they have holes in the roof, and now they're talking about Thruxton being the centre.
Were they part of the Ebbw Vale Motorsport Park?
No, that was something else. That was that stillborn project to build a Grand Prix or a race FIA. So I think TVR. Why do I think TVR? Because for similar reasons, but some similar different reasons to Neil with the E-Type. TVR has become interesting and attractive, in part because of historic stuff, like this year the TT race at the Revival was won by an original TVR Griffith.
Yep. So they've got free marketing coming.
Yeah. So 289 Cobra engine in it. Amazing. Yep. There was that track day, the BRDC track day. Chris, you and I are at Silverstone. Cool. Chum of a chum had one in the garage. Michael Caine, not that one, the other one, the racing one, was driving it with our chum Jason. And I thought that is just Mark 1 Cortina rear lights.
Yeah. That's not a lot of people know that.
Mark 1 Cortina rear lights. Well, they do now. Well, 7 more people know now, listening to this. So I think TVR is just the idea of something like a modern Griffith is, I'm not sure is right. There is something that's got to have, the TVRs work because they had more power and performance than anything else sort of available. Their heyday, their Peter Wheeler heyday. We had a Chimera. It was amazing. If I brought a Chimera home now, Lynn would say, that's the nicest car you've ever brought home.
And that's the point for me why I totally agree with your choice of Resurrection Matter, because there was something about the TVR at its best, a simplicity that spoke to a type of motoring addict that I think feels that they haven't got anything they want to buy at the moment.
Yeah, that's true. It was quite a wide range. It was, Neil, you're going to say something, Neil.
No. I think it's 100% true, that.
Yeah. So I think, I remember back in the 90s, there were city boys, they'd be called finance bros now, get me with my social media lingo, or tech bros, 6'4". They bought into it. All the sort of the posh consultants at Accenture, not the failed type like me, they all had TVR Chimeras and Griffiths when I had my little Mark 1 MR2, bless it. So I think it would have to.
But what's the strategy?
So I think the strategy is you would have to have the engineering done by someone like a ProDrive.
Yep.
So I think you get ProDrive to do the engineering of a space frame chassis. They would find somewhere clever to have it assembled and manufactured. They would come up, either they or an XTC, those very, very clever people down in Exeter that do all those clever WRC rally suspensions, did the one for our Porsche at the Ring. Beautiful bits of kit, roller bearing dampers, just amazingly wonderful ride, credible sort of wall of grip. Remember the wall of grip?
The wall of grip, and they're still used by Tata on their.
Still used by Tata.
Yeah.
And I think it would have to have something ridiculously powerful, an LS3 or an LS3 supercharged.
Can we agree normally aspirated? For me, a TVR should always be normally aspirated.
Yeah.
Which is why I think you'd end up with something like an LS3, sort of 6.5, 7,000 revs, normally aspirated, 500 horsepower, 600 pounds torque, 5 or 6 speed manual gear.
What would you call the first model?
I think it has to be a Griffith.
Griffith.
There you go.
Yeah.
So that would be, and I think I'm totally with the colours bit. I think I was yesterday, because it was a nice day, I went and sort of had a little drive down the A41 yesterday. Nearly pulled into Neil's, but I thought he won't want to see me.
Oh, come on.
I was in Malta.
Yeah, that's why. I didn't have enough petrol to get to Malta. So I drove down the A41. I pulled in at the Land Rover Jaguar dealer on the A41, not far from Aylesbury, near the Arla Milk Factory, for those who know the area. And it's just grey and black. Just grey and black. Not a single green car in there. So I think multiple colour palette, I agree with as well. So I think there's TVR. I give TVR a go.
I like it. I'd buy a TVR from you, Mr. C. Definitely.
I'd buy a new type from a new one from Neil.
Manage. What are you going to resurrect?
So I was going to go the strategy route first, and then I was going to end up with the model and the brand. But
Go on.
I think BMW have done this with the Mini, and I think they did a brilliant job with it. So I would get my ass over to Stuttgart and say, look, I think there's probably a market for 2-seat, 2-door, it's almost restomodied, redesigned, British-made, German-engined car. And I think you've got a rather beautiful 6-cylinder engine, which could fit into one of these things if we made them, like all modern equivalents of cars, about 30% bigger than they were originally. Mm-hmm. So, when you see a Cinquecento next to a new Cinquecento, you see a Beetle next to a new Beetle, or a Mini next to a new Mini. And I think I'd get them to create the Triumph Spitfire.
I would call it my second choice. I think it's a very good call.
Yeah,
I would call it the Triumph Hurricane because I think that would produce a bit of mirth in Germany. The Hurricane, and I think it's a straight 6 BMW sits in the front, and the Hurricane will see any other car off the road
with the Browning 303s.
That is.
Isn't it true that when BMW bought Rover, didn't it buy Triumph as well? The name did nothing with it.
Yeah, it has got Triumph. It's got Healy as well.
Yeah. Oh,
there's a very short conversation. Let's just do it, and you can just imagine we'll get a great Italian to sit down with the Spitfire curves, just make the thing a little bit bigger, a little bit wider. They can put some natty seats into it, get the engineering right. And you've got, it probably has a 3 Series platform or even a 2 Series platform.
That's cool. That is cool.
I'm not sure we're going to get a better answer than that because there's only mine to come, and I can be fairly sure it's not as good as that one. Also, am I allowed to tell the Spitfire story from the first Goodwood ball at the revival?
Oh, please do.
Please.
When a gentleman arrived wearing a flying jacket and a scarf, and someone didn't spot what this meant, and they said, "What did you come in?" And he said, "Spitfire." And he said, "Triumph." And he went, "No, Supermarine."
Was that That was Ray Hanna, wasn't it?
I think it was. It might well have been Ray Hanna.
Who amazingly...
What? Triumph, no, Supermarine.
And that man who flew down the start-finish straight at 10 feet or less off...
That was Ray Hanna.
Amazingly, he died of old age.
Yeah. There's some footage of him flying under a bridge for some
TV
costume. Have you seen that?
Yeah.
Bloody hell.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's my idea. All right, and I'm glad that Neil left this to me. I'm a very proud Bristolian, so there's only one car company I can resurrect, and it has to be Bristol. Now, I'm sure great minds think alike, because the man that I want to run this, there's only one person I want to run this, it's not me. I'm financed and I want to be involved in strategy, but I shouldn't be allowed anywhere near any adult activities whatsoever, because I'm a child. Chris Cooper basically has to help me through my day-to-day activities, because I'm an incompetent man. So don't let me anywhere near this. But I've got a few ideas. I want to resurrect Bristol, and Eagle E-types. I've written this down. You can see in my notebook. It says here, Henry Pearman.
Yeah.
I saw Henry at the Scramble. I haven't seen him for a while. I mean, besides having a collection of Group C cars that makes your knees want to fall over, he's the purveyor of Eagle E-types. And whenever I ask him about the progress of the business, I love the honesty and I love the laid-back nature. And there's a whiff of Tony Crook about him. He's not a rude man, but I just said to him, how many are you making? And he sort of goes, sort of one a year. You go, what, one a year? And he goes, yeah, we might do two, but any interest in making any more? Not really, no. People that buy them fucking love them. And I think I've driven his low drag thing. I mean, it's just sex.
Gorgeous.
It's a proper thing.
The low drag's the one, isn't it?
I'm going to give Henry Pearman £1 billion, and I'm going to say, you're going to make a Bristol. And I'm going to give him, these are I've written down my design criteria based on the dynamics of the vehicle, because he's going to make it look amazing. He's going to go back and he's going to create a pastiche, a celebration of Bristol's past and present. That isn't a tit reference. That's a car reference. Okay. I'm going to sit to him. I'm going to say, Henry, I'm going to read from my book. All I want this car to do is shit all over a Continental GT. That's all it's got to do.
Yeah.
And Henry's going to go, I know exactly what you mean, boss. And he's going to give me a ride and handling package. He's going to give me a performance package that's going to mean the two that get made a year, which will be sold at a loss, because that's what Bristol should never make money as a company.
Yeah.
And everything about it, trim levels, is all going to be references to my beloved Bristol. So you can have the Brunel spec, or you can have, all the colours are going to be referenced to cider orchards and varieties of apples and bad things that happened in Bristol. And if you want the super duper exhaust, it's going to be called the Filton, and no one will understand why. But then you'll go back and read that that's where they built the fucking cars. So for me, it's Henry. Henry, if you ever listen to this, you're in charge of Bristol. You're going to make it great again. And in 10 years, I want you to make no more than 14 cars. 7 of which Neil Clifford will probably own.
Yeah.
Oh, magic.
What would you call it? Would you call it the Brabazon?
No, I wouldn't, because the Brabazon hanger's there. It's going to be, I wrote it down here. Here we go. It's going to be called, it's called the Filton. Sorry.
It's called the Filton.
It's called the Filton, because for me, Filton it's not the most salubrious area, but Filton is where, Concorde took off and landed.
I know. You could have called it the Gloucester Road.
I could have called it the Gloucester Road, but I've been sick there so many times.
That's why I thought.
Yeah. So, I'm now going to move it on, before I reveal too much about my previous life, to our 2-car garage.
I love this.
Okay. I don't know who wrote this. I can. Jep1912 wrote this rather arch 2-car garage, I think pointedly aimed at the more bearded man among us. That's me. You're a new YouTuber, desperate for clicks, likies, and subscribers. You need 2 cars. A, immediately to attract a Generation X viewership with a perfect 1-car garage, whilst B, do up a fine classic with a series of restoration vlogs culminating in a Euro road trip to amuse and delight your new followers.
I've got this cracked.
Chris has been so confident we're going straight to him.
So I think the first car, I think you'd want, I've taken this very seriously. I think there are some important social media.
I know where you're going with this as well. I can see there's an impish look about you.
No, I've taken it very seriously. This is a totally straight-faced, straight-laced approach of a Raytheon broadcasting proportions. So I think the first car you'd have, I think these days, you'd probably want, I think you'd take a car, this is just me spitballing, you'd want a car probably that's been driven by a footballer. It's probably been crashed by a footballer. And I think you would take that car. I think it would be something like a Lamborghini Urus Performante.
Yes.
Yeah.
In a shocking hue of something. I think you would take that car that had been crashed by a footballer, probably very well known, high standard professional footballer, a Premier League sort of type. And I think you'd say, I need a better car than that. So I think you would give it to somebody and you'd follow this very carefully on your social media channels. And it would be extended to take a larger entourage than just a footballer and his squeeze. And I think you would offer it to a pop star, let's just say randomly Taylor Swift.
Ooh.
And I think you'd offer this car to Taylor Swift. And
you get through her police escort first.
And you know where I'm going with this. And you'd offer this car to Taylor Swift and you'd say, I think you'd make it big enough so it could have some metropolitan police escorts attached to this Lamborghini Urus Performante extended EWB, extended wheelbase version. And I think it would also include some very, very secure communication devices. So this Lamborghini Performante Urus EWB.
Would there be space for Sir Keir and his little Keirs?
So I think it would have secure communication to the Metropolitan Police and to the Attorney General so that you could arrange for social media purposes and general Raytheon broadcasting values.
Right, you're in full flow, but I'm
special escort.
I now want to know what your second car is.
The second car would be a 2011 Kia Picanto. Because when I'm starting out, that's all I can well afford. And I put some little flowery stickers on it from some purveyor of such things. And then I would go to the Waking Life Festival in Portugal. Because the Waking Life Portugal is a midsummer festival, I'm reading this out, is a midsummer festival and a year-round playground for creation and experimentation. And I think that would be lovely on social media. And frankly, that's all I can afford because I'm not very good. And there's a danger that I spend all my money on this extra special vehicle for Taylor Swift to be specially escorted with the approval of the Attorney General through the streets of London, Manchester, Birmingham and Glasgow. I think that is solid public service advice to a new breed of podcasters and influencers interested in the mechanical propelled road.
I'm not sure I should even bother offering this to the floor because that was really very good. Manish, I'm sorry, you got to follow that somehow.
Oh God, that's going to be hard. This Lamborghini Urus seems to be a bit of groupthink. I've got to tell you, first I did a tiny bit of research. You might think this was a bit behind of me, but I decided to just check out, say, the first half a dozen YouTubers on cars, and they're all called something like Penelope Blonde What's a Cam and Cameron Quiff What's a Cylinder. Do they know what, I mean, they've owned less cars than me, all 20 top YouTube. It's quite frightening. So the first car,
I think they get it right and say fewer, but I wouldn't want to correct you.
I'm sorry. Yes, yeah. They do have fewer cars. You're right. Better elocuted as well. But there is only one Urus extension that you can have. It is the Lamborghini Venatus Evo Coupe C. It's a two-door Urus built completely of carbon fiber. Wow. It's 2 million euros, 900 horsepower. The color of this car can only be described as metallic Batman. It's just this kind of purple black. And the interior is, I've given it a nickname. I call it Vomitus Lapis Lazuli. It's just electric, disgusting blue leather. This thing goes like batshit. So it's 0 to 60 in 2.9 seconds. But it does it on a straight desert road because these guys can't drive. They literally just put their foot down and then they hit the brakes. a terrible car. And then I think the second car is going to be, because the other thing about these slightly strange YouTubers is that I think there's a bit of contrivance in these videos. I don't think they're entirely transparently correct. It's a humble feeling. So I think they're going to basically redo a barn find Aston Martin Bulldog. And I think we only know that there is only one, but they're going to barn find one and build it over 6 months. And that also, in my opinion, is a sack of shit, that car.
You don't like the Bulldog?
Hate it. Absolutely hate it.
It's the ultimate wedge.
It is not the ultimate wedge. It's an attempt at some kind of ultimate wedge. But I can see someone doing that one up. Absolutely.
Well, Andy doesn't like the Bulldog. Amazing. But I'm with you. The Urus is an amazing thing because the fact is the Urus gets clicks. You're all on the right track. We're after clicks here, and the Urus does the job. Yeah. Neil Clifford, where are you going with this?
Well, I have a number of very good, clever friends who do a lot of YouTube. And one of them, his name is Freddie. Brilliant photographer, great YouTube guy. And actually, you know, these guys make money. These are jobs nowadays, as opposed to whingy old fuckers that don't think that, I mean, they're real jobs.
Not so much of the old.
So I messaged Freddie and said, so what is the ultimate YouTuber's fantasy car? If you had a budget of up to £10 million, what would you buy so you could film on YouTube and get a lot more followers? And this is Freddie's response. Hi, Neil. Actually, I'd say the YouTuber's fantasy car would have to be a classic hypercar, i.e. a Bugatti Chiron, or something even more bonkers like a Koenigsegg or a Pagani. But for me, if I only wanted to gain views, I wouldn't pick anything near this £10 million mark. I'd pick something a whole lot cheaper and pick a somewhat unpopular modification strategy journey for the car, because this is the key. This is really good, this.
Yeah.
Nothing gets views like negativity.
Yeah.
And I thought, Freddie, that's fucking interesting, that. So
you should have written Broadscar back in the day. Wind the readership up. If you're not getting negative mailbag, you're not doing your job.
Yeah. So here's in 2 minutes is my little strategy.
Go on.
I am getting the one of one Pagani Zonda MBNA Vongole Carbonara, which the panels have been made from pure mother of pearl from the inside of a clamshell. The leather interior is real pink, crispy pigskin.
I thought skin was going to be in the word you used.
Yes, and the carbon fibre is pure matte spaghetti yellow, because nothing gets a YouTuber more excited, like my lovely friends, of coloured carbon.
Yellow in particular.
Yellow. I've never seen yellow. It's all about blue and green and red. I haven't seen yellow carbon. So this car,
well, I will run it then.
Honda MBNA Vongole Carbonara has got yellow carbon. Now, he then needs a second car, and he's taken this is the negativity route. This is how you really get more followers than Harry's Garage. Is you take a beautiful, gorgeous classic car. So I've chosen a 1967 Rolls-Royce Silver Shadow Mark I that was owned by Elton John. And it's in navy blue with tan leather. And you've bought this car for a lot of money, but you're going to cut the roof fucking straight off. First thing with a chainsaw, and you're going to make it into a convertible. But actually, you're going to take the rear seats out, and you're going to make a bed so you can sleep in this car.
Who would you get to sponsor the chainsaw?
Yeah. I'm not sure about that.
I think Stihl. I think that Stihl. Very upright, proper German brand of woodland creativity tooling.
I know. I own many tools of which I've never opened, but a chainsaw is not one of them.
We've got one here. I'll bring it.
I would fit a tow bar so I can then tow my Pagani MB&A Carbonara Zonda Vongole, because of course you need to go to Monaco and you need to just drive round and round and round and round and round the whole of the fucking summer in your Rolls-Royce convertible Now we're going to wrap it in mother of pearl so these cars actually match. You're going to paint with a paintbrush all that lovely tan leather pink to match your Zonda. You're going to paint the yellow on all the chrome bumpers, and you're going to take the exhaust off. So it's fucking so loud that everyone knows you're coming. And you're going to get the number plate off regtransfers.co.uk P3 NIS, and you're going to do you're just going to drive around Monaco towing your beautiful pearlescent.
Chris, have you actually got a chainsaw there?
Obviously. Still.
That's a nice, what body is that? What mod is that? A 260?
It's a 261.
Yeah, there you go. They're good. That's a solid saw, that is.
Yeah.
And
That's not normal. That's not normal.
It's just perfectly normal.
They're good at two things. They're very good at cutting trees and diffusing road rage situations.
Yeah.
Right.
That's why I've got it.
Neil Clifford.
Sunday.
That is absolutely fantastic. I can't fault any of that. I don't have anything as good as that. But I can tell you that I like the fact that you've taken it very seriously. The Urus just strikes me as it's such an easy way to do it. There are two. The Shadow is interesting. There are two videos or series of videos that always reminded me that if you absolutely nail YouTube, you're memorable forever. I never managed it, but I've done some reasonable reviews and what have you that I'm proud of. But I never sort of changed the zeitgeist. And I think the two that did it for me, there was a lovely guy when we did Drive that he put an LS something in a Rolls Royce, and Matt Farrow did a video with him, and it was called the Zero Fucks Given Rolls Royce. I just thought it was the whole thing. It was just sort of hand painted. It was just magnificent. But there was only one person. There's only one person or group of people they remain faceless that I think will never be beaten, and that was Tax the Rich. I think those videos of the 288 GTO sliding, the Rolls Royce apparently tried to get them back into a new Rolls Royce to recreate the film recently because it was so cool. So I would totally rip off Tax the Rich. I'd buy 3 £1 million cars. I wouldn't wreck them, but I'd behave poorly in them in a way that people knew that I hadn't wrecked them. So I'd around my farm, I would go and drive. And what would those three cars be? An F50, I don't know, a Zonda, and maybe an Urus. But that's what I would do. But my other, if that's, I'm being naughty now because I've got to find somebody doing it. The other thing I'd like to do for my journey is this. Now, I don't know which Bristol that is. Is that a 412? What is that? That's the really... Right. I don't understand why, if we embrace the vernacular, no one has ever taken a Bristol to a nudist beach. Because the idea of taking a Bristol
they might have done
to look at Bristols is surely one of the great pieces of highbrow entertainment. I'd like to pay Manish Pandey, a very highbrow, serious director and writer of films, to write me a score. I go to a South Coast, perhaps Jurassic Coast, naturist beach in a Bristol with a view to exploring Bristols.
Yeah, look at my Bristols. That's what it'd be called.
I think we've got millions of clicks there, enough to pay his generous stipend.
Yeah.
We should do that. We should actually do that.
Because thumbnails, there's little thumbnails and the little sort of like kapow. Look at my Bristols. That would do it.
Yeah. I like that. Okay, let's do a little bit of music. We will end today with some music choices. I'm going to go straight to Manish.
Tom Ford did a film called Nocturnal Animals a while ago. And the composer is a guy called Abel Kosanovsky. And we used this piece of music in a film starring Luca Montezemolo and Chris Harris as temporary music. And I would urge you to listen to a glorious piece of film music called Table for Two by Abel Kosanovsky.
Wow.
We'll put the name up there. I've got no idea how you spell that. It looks like got lots of Q's and V's. It looks like it might be a Lamborghini engine tune. Let's move to Neil with an E.
You know, it's really bloody stressful having children, isn't it? You know, if someone really told you how stressful it was going to be, I doubt if half of us would have kids, because particularly bloody 3 kids that I've got, they're all lovely, but it's very stressful. And I was, because you worry, don't you? You just worry the whole time. And I was driving back from London late last week with my son Arthur, who's a very lovely, lovely boy, but you worry about him. And I said, oh, come on, let's play some music, because I was a bit knackered. I didn't have a Red Bull. He was trying to keep me awake. I said, just put some music on. You choose some music. Play some of your favourite songs. There he was on his Sonos, and he put on Barry White, Never, Never Gonna Give You Up.
Oh, great song!
And that, I thought he was going to put something obviously cool and modern, but maybe something that I didn't know. And I sort of took a bit of a risk because I really wanted him just to play Radiohead. And he put this song on, and I thought he's going to be absolutely fucking fine.
He is.
He listens to Barry White. It's going to be okay.
Yeah.
How old is he, Neil?
He's 22.
Well,
that's a magical age.
Yeah, Barry. I mean, yeah, Barry White. What a voice.
Yeah.
Chris Cooper, what are you going to go for?
On Friday last, I was driving back up from Cornwall. I had a little whistle-stop trip there. And I was on that part of the A30 coming eastbound between Temple, Bodmin Moor and Launceston. And it's that part of the A30 where it's got some lovely sweeping, big radius things where, exactly, an engineer would say you could get some load into the chassis.
Mm-hmm.
All entirely legal. Officer was a person.
What car were you in?
I was in the sausage. I was in Bratwurst. And I was listening to something. It was something I put on YouTube that I was playing through my phone on the thing. It was While My Guitar Gently Weeps.
Oh, lovely song.
But it was, we'll put the link up because I need to find it on music platforms, but there's a fantastic, unbelievable YouTube video of a version of this played by Prince, Tom Petty, Steve Winwood, Jeff Lynne, and George Harrison's son.
It is with Danny Harrison. Yeah,
Danny.
Unbelievable.
And there's a bit in this video. I mean, it's an amazing, beautiful song, but where those rock gods play this thing, and it's a 6 1/4 half-minute video, and at 3 minutes 25, there's a shot of Danny's face that just breaks into this amazing smile. Why? Because you can see that Prince is about to come forward onto the stage and do a solo, and he just shreds it. Just totally shreds it. I've listened to it non-stop the whole of the rest of the weekend. So for something to drive by, because they're always something to do with how we love driving, our obsession with cars, and whether it's Methane's discussion about driving with Arthur, which is a lovely, lovely, wonderful, hopeful parable for all of our kids. While My Guitar Gently Weeps, George Harrison, but done by those rock gods. Nice. I defy anybody to watch that, listen to it, and not want to go out and drive.
Yeah, when you see Tom Petty shaking his head, going, "Don't know where he came from. He's an alien. He can do stuff."
Just unbelievable.
So I'll keep mine short. I got up very early this morning. And one of the things about my life, I'm very, very lucky, boys. I get to drive some amazing cars. And I won't tell you why, but I drove an XKSS this morning, one of two with original D-type chassis plates, probably insured for 9 million quid. And I was beating around in that. The weather wasn't very good. I got back in my car and I thought, was that good or was that? I often think, is that good or was that bad? I got to drive something no one else will get to drive, or very few people get to drive. But did I drive it in a way that was good enough? I'm not sure. But it was still an amazing experience. And I put the radio on. And a song came on that I've not heard in ages. And it's a song I just adored when I was younger. I think it's freaking brilliant and everyone should listen to it. And I've not listened to it for a long time. And that is I'm Not the Man I Used to Be by Fine Young Cannibals. It's an absolutely amazing tune. Put it on. It's just in his voice.
Great band.
Magnificent. And it's a good late night driving song as well. You know, it gets the old juices flowing. So thank you very much to my fellow podcasters for making me smile and laugh this evening. I've really enjoyed that. I hope you've enjoyed listening to it. If it was a bit controversial and sweary in places, I'd like to say we apologise. We do apologise. We recorded this on a new piece of software by Riverside. If there's any problems or you think it's been shit, please tell us in the comments and we'll adjust how we record these things. But it felt good to us and we like our names on the screen. So thank you to my fellow podcasting nerdy friends, Manish Pandey, Chris Cooper, Neil Clifford and me, Chris Harris. And we hope to annoy you again next week.